Hello, I'm Jessica Klimish, a creative writer, writing coach, and editor, and the owner of JEK Writing Studio. In last week's video, I talked about reusable writing prompts. What I didn't tell you was that I am actually using a reusable writing prompt for October, and I've been writing a flash fiction piece a day using this general prompt. It's not the prompt that I shared in the video last week, but that is a good one that you could use for if you want to do this kind of challenge. I've often heard that you should leave your work when you finish for the day at a place where you know what's going to happen next, so that when you come to write the next day or whenever you come back to writing, you know exactly how to start. And this is really interesting to me because I've actually not followed that advice for most of my writing career. Not because I think it's bad advice. I don't think it's bad advice. But what I generally do when I know how something is going, I want to keep working on it. And I usually stop when I'm stuck, or when I'm tired, or when I don't know where else to go with what I'm working on. So what I have found interesting is doing this October flash fiction a day challenge using the reusable prompt is that once I've finished my draft for the day, which usually only takes about 15 or 20 minutes because it's just a draft, it's not something that I'm going to send out or try to get published right away. Once I've finished my draft, I continue thinking about it, how I might expand it in the future, but I also start thinking about what I'm going to write the next day. So pretty much every day in October so far, when I've sat down to do my story of the day, my flash fiction draft of the day, I already have an idea in my head. I haven't worked out any of the details, I just have an idea. And it's really surprising how easy it is to just start writing then. And so I was thinking about this advice that writers often give, to leave your work when you know what's going to happen next, so that when you come back to it, it's easy to get started again. And this is kind of the same thing, but I'm putting a little bit of a twist on it because I'm writing a full draft each day. So this is kind of a long-winded way of talking about thinking. So thinking is a very important part of writing, and thinking in advance, thinking about what you're going to be writing without actually writing. Whatever you're working on, whether it's a flash fiction, whether it's a novel, whether it's a memoir, whatever it is, you don't necessarily need to follow that conventional writing wisdom of stopping at a point where you need to know what's going to be coming next, so that when you come back to it, it's easy to start again. But what I'm offering instead is stop whenever you want. Whether you're tired or can't think of what else to do with it, but continue thinking, and think about as you go through your day. Like I always say, I do my best writing when I'm running, because that's when I get a lot of ideas and some of the thoughts start flowing. And that's actually usually when I think of what I'm going to write the next day for this October challenge. So my tip to you is to spend some time thinking about what you're going to write before you actually start getting back to it, so that you don't go cold to a blank screen, so that you're not looking at the screen and wondering, what am I going to write today? So whether you end your writing session knowing where you're going to start the next time you pick it back up, or whether you end just because you don't know what else to write, think. And then when you come back to whatever you're going to write, whenever, have an idea of what you're going to write. It can be as vague as you want it to be, just something to say, yes, that's what I'm going to write about. So for example, in The prompt that I offered last week talked about writing about something, an item or a person that inexplicably disappears. So if that were the reusable prompt that I was using every day, and maybe it will be sometime, some month, what I would be thinking about is what item or person is going to be disappearing in tomorrow's draft. And what am I going to do with this? I don't have to know very much about it. Sometimes all I need to know is I'm going to make a house disappear. And so that's all you need to think is what is going to disappear when I'm going to write this. You don't have to know how it's going to unfold. You don't have to know any specific details, but having a general idea of how to start is really all you need. You don't need a whole lot of information to start writing, especially if you follow this intuitive writing that I like to do, where you just do without thinking. Whatever comes to mind, write it down. It doesn't have to make sense. You don't have to know where it comes from or where it's going. You just write it down intuitively, whatever comes to mind. And the cool thing is these are no stakes drafts. So they're not going to be published. They're just very first drafts. They can be as basic as you want them to be. Sometimes my very first drafts are just bullet points or a little summary of what I actually want to write, but can't think of the words to write at that time. So there's all sorts of ways to get started, but don't discount this idea of thinking ahead. Some of us, particularly me and others who are pantsers, we don't plan we're not plotters. We don't plan ahead of what we are going to be writing. When I start a story, I almost never know what's going to happen beyond the very first sentence. And sometimes I don't even know that. I just have this little nugget of an idea that I'm just going to pour on the page and see what happens. And sometimes that's where the best ideas come from. So it's kind of contradictory advice, actually. I'm telling you to think ahead before you write, but then stop thinking as you write. So think and then don't think. Happy writing, and as usual, if you enjoyed this video, I hope you subscribe to my channel, like it, share it, comment, and I'll see you next time.